Hello, my friends. John LaRuffa here with another rule speed through. And in this episode, we are going to take a look at Daitoshi. I'm going to teach you how to play this. I'm going to teach you the solo mode. And then hopefully it will help you figure out how this game goes, refresh yourself if it's been a little while. But either way, let's get started. Okay, folks, and as usual, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done this already. If you have, I really do appreciate that support. Thank you very much. So there's a ton going on in this game. There's no doubt about it. This is what the game looks like when you finish a solo game, which should take you about 2 hours, give or take. Now, there's so much going on here that you see. I'm going to give you an overview, and then I'm going to take you into closer spots so that we can see what the situation is, how does it look, etc. So when you set this game up, you're going to set it up as a two-player game, and you're going to deal out a certain number of cards depending on your difficulty level from this deck. The minimum difficulty is a 3-card game here, where you have a setup, a during a game, and an end game condition for your automa. And the automa is over here, and it has this full board and literally plays the game almost identically to you, which should make things very easy because just about every rule I tell you, as far as the actions and as far as how everything works, is going to apply directly to the automa. The only difference is the automa never gets steam, and so it never collects water, it never collects coal, it completely ignores any rewards for steam, water, and coal, unless you have some kind of card like this that says when you would get steam, you get a wild resource. So there are some things, and there are things that I'm saying here that might, that you have to look at these cards that may change certain things, okay? But for the most part, it plays just like you. So there are two types of actions you can take in this game. There are city-based actions, which is where you're going to move your person in this rondel, execute things out there. And then there are production actions, where you're going to actually produce with the factory that you have, paying to activate each of these rows. And the cost to activate them is in Steam down here. And it may change if you fall into conflict with the yellow spirit. You don't have to activate all of your buildings, and each of these are a separate specific building. You can activate any ones that you want. And I'll go into what does that look like and how you do that as well. So first, to take a look at this, on this spot here, you have a track that manages your steam production. Every time you get a water, you will move up this track over here towards the water. Every time you get a coal, you'll move down the track towards the coal. Whenever you are moving in the direction that your arrow shows, so for instance, if I was to gain a coal, I would move this down one space. And when I do that, I would gain either 2 or 3 steam, depending on if you are in conflict with the forest spirit here. In this case, I'm not, so I would gain 3 steam, and I would just stack it up, and I'm going to use that steam for all sorts of things in the game. So that's what this is. This track over here measures your conflict state with the different spirits in the game. So if you have nothing in these stacks, then you have no conflict, you have no problems, you actually are set up really well to score for the river track at the end, which I'll tell you about. If you have 1, you're still not in conflict, but if you have 2 or more at the end of your turn of any of these 4 things, you're going to be in conflict. So this shows, since I have 3 of these red ones, it doesn't matter how many after 2 you have, but you will show this side here with this little flaming hexagon on it. And that means you are in conflict with the specific spirit. And that means you're going to have a penalty enacted. In this case, the penalty is going to be that your factory can only hold 2 workers instead of the 6 workers that it normally would. If you're in conflict with the blue, your production is going to be hampered. This is going to flip around, penalizing you in that case. If you're in conflict with the forest, you're going to produce only 2 steam instead of 3 when you move your steam marker up and down, or your water or coal marker, I should say. And if you're in conflict with the yellow, it's going to cost you, instead of 1 and 4 steam to activate this building and this building, it's going to cost you 3 and 7. And those are the 4 types of conflicts. Now, the rest of the board over here shows your supplies of food, electricity, building materials, and luxury goods. And any wild tokens you might have right here will go down here, and these can count for any resource that you want in the game. They are wild, okay? And then over here you have your 3 buildings, building 1, building 2, building 3, as I'm just calling them. Each of these buildings can hold different amounts, this one 3, that one 2, this one 3, of these inventions. And these inventions are basic, for pity's sake, I'll never remember, but like level 1, level 2, and level 3, okay? I think it's like basic something ingenious or something like that. And the higher the invention, the more it can do for you, okay? And so once you put an invention in your factory or your building, it's there for the rest of the game, and it will start actually in the bottom space like this. And that means that you're only going to be paying out for that initial space when you activate it. You won't be paying out for this one or this one. However, every time you run your factory, you're going to move this cube up 1 or 2 times, depending on the situation, whether you're the production leader or you're following. And once you cross over this little arrow here with this cube, you will move it up, and now you will then get all 3 of these whenever you activate the factory, okay? So that's how the buildings are set up, and I will show you in just a second how to take that turn. Now, on the board, you see here a mixture of the original tiles, which are going to be there at setup. So at setup, you're going to have just these 5 individual tiles in the center, okay? And these will all be flipped to their non-electrified side, which looks like this, looks like that paperish color. The electrified side looks like the buildings are in the dark, and there are, the bluish color here with the lights on, okay? The rondel works like this. When you take a city action, you will take your pawn, all right, and you will move it around this board, and you will go to either this space right here, where, and there's 5 different ones. This space right here where you don't place any workers, this space right here where you pay 1 steam to place any number of workers, following the worker placement rules, or this place where you pay 2 steam to remove the workers, then you can place any number of workers that you have in your area here, following the the worker placement rules. When you place workers, you will get the rewards that are indicated next to the worker, and you could take them or place them in any order that you want. After you're finished getting those rewards, then you will exploit the specific resource on the board on these tracks up here, either the red, the yellow, the green, or the blue, in order to take the action associated with it. When you exploit a resource, you will remove it from the board, effectively opening up another pilgrim space, and you will place it on your track over here, gaining the top reward of that color. In this case, because I exploited the red, I would gain a red worker and gain a coal, meaning that I would move this down and produce steam because it's going in that direction and it's following the arrow. And if you have more than, if this is your second one or more, you'd flip it over, showing that you're going to be in conflict at the end of the turn. Then you would fully carry out the action associated with the space that you took, and then your turn is over, except you have to check for conflicts at the very end of your turn. When you check for conflicts, you look to see, are any of these 2 or more, and if they are, you have to flip over the associated tile. In this case, I've already got the factory flipped over there with the worker holder, okay? I can only hold 2. And that is the general breakdown of how the rondel works. Now, also, if you move to a spot where the Mega Machine is located, then you can take actions on the Mega Machine, all right? And I'll explain that when we get there, but that means that you can, instead of taking the main action out here on the board, you'll take a main action on here, and you can place a worker, and the worker will go here, getting this benefit right here, depending on the Mega Machine that's in play, any of the additional benefits that you may have unlocked throughout the game, and it shows the gray and the arrow, meaning that it has to match the color of the main color associated with that action in the first place. Now there's this one right here, you'll notice this one is a gray, and gray in this game means any color, okay? So if you see a gray icon, it is any color you can place, meaning you could play any color you wanted over here, as long as it matches whatever is in this space in the first place. But most of them are, the other ones are all color-coded. You have a green, a blue, a yellow, and a red. And that's the worker placement. You can only place a color that matches here, and all these gray arrows mean that once you've placed a color over here, or in general, it has to line up. So this spot and all these spots must be blue. All these spots must be green. All these spots must be yellow, red, and these all need to match depending on what's there because it's the wild spot. Okay, now let's go over how you are going to do the production turn. I'm going to use the Automa's board because the Automa's board is not completely maxed out with everything. So when you do a production turn, and the Automa doesn't actually have the little gear, but I'm going to use my gear to show, okay? When you do a production turn on your turn, you will not move your rondelle pawn at all. You will move this over here to this side, and then you will produce. You will become the production leader if you are the one initiating the production. And what that means is that you will get the production for any of the blue arrows, or blue checks that you see below your inventions, and any of the pink checks. You'll get all those resources. So what that means is you will literally get 2 of these, 1 of these, 1 point, 2 of these, and you can spend these to get this once, 1 of these, etc. So you will take your actions however you want, but you'll basically get 1 of each of the things that has the blue check, okay? After you have completely gained all of your resources, and you'll move up on these tracks over here and gain wilds, etc., then for every building, and so I have to mention this too. In order to activate the building, like I said, you have to pay the steam. So I'd pay 2 steam to activate all 3 of these. I'd pay 1 steam to activate all these, and I'd pay 4 to do these. And you could pay it all at once, or you can just do certain ones, etc. But for the most part, you're going to want to activate as much as you can afford just about every single time because there is literally no reason not to. So as long as you have the steam, you're going to pay for it. Now, after you've done all those activations, then for every one of your inventions that you've activated, as the production leader, you are going to move that cube over 2 times. So that means every single one of these on this, if I paid for every one, we would go 2 times over. And there's different icons on those, which I'll talk about right now. As you see the arrow, that's when you would shift up this from the bottom to the top. Effectively, all these have been already upgraded, but that gives you access to all the rewards. Second, the other thing you see is the little gear. That means you score the victory point shown here. Also, you see this little white circle. That means that this invention, once you are on that or more, that invention is now eligible to be donated to the Mega Machine, which I'll talk about near the end of this video. And that lets you donate that in to swap it out for the inventions on the Mega Machine and to score rewards and points. And then finally, some of these have a 2, so that would like double that score. And some of them have this little icon right here, which is a hex with a red line through it. And that means you get to discard any one of these exploit tiles that you have over here, helping you manage your exploit situation. After you've done all of that, the other player can follow you, but they only get to, one more thing, sorry. The other thing is, for each building that you have activated, you get to move any one of your pilgrims up 1 space on any of the tracks. And the pilgrims are these little guys right there, and you could pick any number of tracks, and you could do it up to 3 times if you've activated all 3 of your different buildings. And buildings, again, are these columns, okay? Now, after you do that, then the Automa, or vice versa, depending on who's the production leader, they are going to be able to activate all their buildings, but only at a reduced amount. That means just the blue checks, not the pink, only 1 movement of the cube, and no upgrading of the pilgrim, okay? You can see there's this little faint dotted line there. That means if you're not the production leader, you get to follow, but that's all you get to do. As a production leader, the guy who moved the gear, you do all this on the top. Now, you're never allowed to run your production twice in a row. So after you've done producing, getting all your stuff, you're going to roll this gear back to the left. That means you're not allowed to take that action again. You have to take another city action, and at the end of your next turn, you'll put it in the middle, allowing you to do another production action if you want, okay? And so that is how the production action works. Now, I talked to you about penalties. If you're in conflict with the water spirit, then if you're the person following, you don't get to move any of the cubes. And if you're the person who is leading, you only get to move the cubes once, not twice. That's the conflict penalty. Also, if you're in conflict penalty with the yellow guy, your production costs go up 3 and 7 respectively instead of the 1 and 4. And so those are the two things that affect the production turn if you're in conflict with those spirits. Okay, so that is the main way you're going to gain almost all your resources in this game right here. And that's a very important thing. And also, several of the main mechanisms for scoring are going to rely on all of that, because you're going to score a lot of points for activating these buildings. You're also going to score points if you've maximized the machine on the tracks, as you'll see in a minute. So that is production. Now, let's talk about all the other actions that you can take on this board. Okay? So there are several of them, and I will go one at a time, and I'm going to try. This is a large board, but I think I can fit just about most of everything on here so you can see it. All right. Now, here's the story. First, these are always randomized. You're not going to know which order you're going to go in, okay? But what I will show you is each of these actions, and you can see them printed on the board. The building action will always require you to exploit the red. The gain new inventions will always require you to exploit the blue. The delivery to the foreign towns over here will require you to exploit the green. This is a wild, which requires you to exploit the water and your choice of something else, but that allows you to take any of the other actions. And the electrify action will make you exploit the yellow. So we've talked about the way that you interact with the city with moving the rondelle and everything else. I'm just going to focus on each of the types of actions so that you can learn those. Now, this action, when you take this action, you are going to choose to gain 1 or 2 of these inventions at a cost of 1 apiece, 2 apiece, or 3. And you can do any combination of those, but you can only take 1 or 2 tiles. If you take 1 tile, you will get all the rewards immediately. So if I only take this tile and I put it in one of my factory slots, I can put it anywhere I want, and I can never move it, I would get this and this and this right away if I only take 1, and that's what this icon means. But if I buy 2 of them, I don't take the bonuses. I have to pay for them all. But it's just a way to build up your factory faster. And by the way, on all of these cities, the cities have indications of certain actions that you take. If you have a flag there, or towns, or whatever they are, you can spend them to activate and get the reward, basically turning in your flag, getting rid of it, and you gain the reward. In this case, it would be 4 steam. So the reason I point that out is because you can take this at any time during the time that you are initiating the action on a space that matches. And some of them, like this one, this is for you being the production leader. You know it's a production leader because it shows the pink check, okay? And they vary from different things. All right. So that was how you gain inventions. And again, you're going to put your inventions in your factories like I showed you. Now we'll talk about building the rings around the city, expanding the city. When you build a ring, you're going to look for open spaces. In this case, most of it is built out. But let's say this space didn't exist here just for a moment. All right. You can build in any city or any space that you want, and you either pay 2 or 4. There is also a way to just pay 3 if you want, and the way you do that is it'll allow you to discard some tiles that you might have and get your exploit piles down, plus you get the exploit rewards. You're going to try not to do that if you can afford not to, just because it's better to do this. When you pay the 2 or 4, you take the appropriate ring from the supply, top down. You could put it at any one of these spots that are open you want to build. You'll place the ring there, and then you will take one of your tiles, and it can be from any pile, but it has to be a tile, and you'll place it over here, this face up, the conflict face up, and you'll immediately get the conflict reward. The conflict reward, again, is the one on the bottom of the icon on the bottom shown on your production board that is associated with the color. So this building, the reason you're building a new place in the town, and that's a way to get rid of those exploit tiles and expand the city, opening up other worker rewards and opening up spots that you can electrify later to get those rewards. Let's talk about the electrify action. When you electrify, you spend a specific amount of electricity, or wild, to turn one of these tiles around and get all the bonuses. If there happens to be a person there, so if there is a person here like this yellow, you'll discard them. You will then get any of the rewards shown. In this case, you'll move up twice on the, I think it's the prestige, I'm sorry, the one with the hat. But you're going to move up twice here, getting the rewards shown. If you land in this space, that is how you will increase your prestige, which I'll talk about in just a second. But it is printed on your player board. As a matter of fact, I'll just show it to you right now. If you upgrade that, you will move your prestige marker. It's reputation, it's not prestige. Reputation marker up one space. And that's going to be important because as you move around this little worm bus that you have, every time you land in a space like this or trigger a reward, for instance, like that, you pay out the victory points shown as your reputation level. And that could be a main way to score a lot of points depending on what you're trying to do. All right, let me put this back here in place. So that is how you will electrify. Once you do that, you will flip this over, you'll discard that exploit tile, you'll flip it over, and it'll be in a space in a way that is upgraded for the rest of the game. So you see this action right here for placing worker is better than it was in the first place. In the first place, it was simply to gain the points for your reputation. Now, you not only gain the points for reputation, you also move your hat one around that spot and gain more rewards, okay? So that is the electrification space. Now, if I want to build, I've talked to you about machines, I've talked to you about building, I've talked to you about electrification. The last action is this one where you're going to ship to these exterior markets. So to ship to the exterior market, you pay a specific amount of steam depending on the market you want to ship to. All right, and I'm going to move this around just so you can see what we're talking about here. Okay. Sorry about some of those shadows for a moment. Let me just get us set up. Okay. Now, so for instance, if I wanted to go to this spot right here, I'd have to pay 2 steam. And then for each of the luxury goods that I have and or wilds, I would be able to effectively gain the bonuses of the city I ship to. In this case, it'd be 3 points for the first one. I get to place a flag up here for the second, 3 more points. This means I get to activate this bonus without removing my flag, and then finally 3 more points. So it's a substantial amount of points you can score from these spaces, plus the rewards and everything else in the game. And that is what happens when you deliver luxury goods to these towns. The final thing you can do is, I said, deliver to the mega machine. In order to do that, this mega machine must be on your space. And when you land on this space, after your turn is done, whether you've delivered to it or not, you're going to move it one space counterclockwise in a different direction, moving it around. Now, what does the mega machine do? Well, this is how it works. There's going to be several different ones you can play with depending on your setup. But the mega machine right here lets you deliver one of your inventions that has met or exceeded that spot. Remember, I talked to you about that when we were upgrading, we were moving that cube. You trade in whatever invention that is, you put it on one of these spots, gaining, that's the 2-player, or that's the blocker for the 2-player, gaining the rewards, in this case 5 points and 2 moves on the hat track, or just 2 moves and 2 moves. And you then replace it with one of these. However, in order to do this action, you have to spend one of everything, including 1 wild. And so this action is tough to do if you don't have a mixture of good resources throughout the game, because you're not going to be able to afford one of each. Anyway, you do that. You can only do it 1 tile, no matter how much you can. You can't do multiple tiles in a turn. You take this and you put it exactly where you had your other machine upgraded, because they're always upgraded before you can move it over. And now you have access to running this machine. Plus, if you finish the tile that this is connected to, you then take this little upgrade and you can put it over here. And also, when you move to the space that has the mega machine, you can put your worker here if you want to take this bonus and other bonuses over here. Now, you can do that even if you aren't going to actually go to the mega machine, because that is part of the worker placement. that is a special thing that happens. As long as you obey the worker placement rules, you can place it over here. You don't have to actually take the Mega Machine turn, but you have to be in the right spot. Once you've done that, then your turn is over, just like a normal rondelle move. The difference here is you're not exploiting any of the tracks to do anything on here, okay? You're just swapping from one to the other. But that's really important. Not only is it important because you score a lot of points, like this one's worth 10 and 2, or 5 and 2, 2 moves on the hat track, but also because for each of these you have at the end of the game, it's one of the scoring conditions. All right, so I've talked to you about every type of move that this game has to offer. Now, how does the AI interact with you? Well, when it's the AI's turn, the AI is going to deal off one of these cards right here. And the way they're going to work is they are going to look. So in this case, the AI, let's put this over here. The AI is yellow, okay? It is going to look for the next district in line, and it's going to see, does the next district match either of these districts on the card? If it doesn't, it moves to the next one, and so on until it finds a match. The order of the icons on this card does not matter. It just needs to be present. Once it's present, in this case, it sees Mega Machine and the factory. It's going to say, do I have everything that I need to as a normal player to take the action? Meaning, do I have the right resources to spend, or do I have space in my factory? In this case, because the Mega Machine was full of inventions, it would only be able to go to the, as I said, the Mega Machine is full, their factory was full of inventions. It would only be able to go to the Mega Machine to take the action. However, if it has nothing, if it can't fulfill anything on the card, then it will do a production turn. Otherwise, it will pick one of those spots to go to, the first one in order going clockwise. That's on the card that they can afford to take according to the exact same rules you would have. And then what it will do is it will try to take the maximum strength action it possibly can, meaning it will spend as many normal resources plus the wilds to get the most out of its move. It's going to do so to try to take the strongest action. And then if there is some specific, where do I place it, what do I do first, etc., that's where this comes in. So when it's trying to build, it's going to look in this district right here on the board, which would be over here. And it's going to try to build the most expensive that it can in that district. And if it can't, it's going to shift over here to the next one, etc. If it's trying to electrify, it's going to try to electrify the outermost spot in this district first, if it can afford to, and then it's going to move in. And if it can't, it's going to move around clockwise again. If it has to make a choice of which worker to place on the wild, it's going to choose this worker right here, the green. If it has to make a choice of which pilgrim to move up on the track, it's going to start with green, then it's going to go to yellow, then it's red, then blue, etc. So the back of these cards are all different. The front of the cards are going to show either 2 or 2 and the wild, and it only goes to the wild if this is here. And if it goes to the wild, it's going to exploit these 2 areas, and it's going to try to do these actions in order first. Or you have some that have all of it on here. The other thing is that at the beginning of the game, it is going to have a bribe tile, which is going to show up on the card. So this tile is going to be in play, and the first time it actually will go and buy inventions, it will discard this. But this will be in play on every card until it first buys inventions. You have a different style tile right here that I didn't talk about yet. But if you need to run your factory and you don't want to spend steam, you can run all 3 of your buildings for free. But if you save this for the end of the game, you can discard it and move 3 cubes over to the right side, which I think you're going to most likely try to do in order to maximize your score there. So the AI works exactly like you do in all those cases, and it will try to place workers if it can. So when it moves to a spot, it's going to go, if it has a legal placement of worker, it is going to place the worker, and it will clear off the workers in that spot using the 2 spot first if it can, if it needs to. It always has the ability because it never pays steam. It's always going to take the worker spots that are the best for it, okay? Meaning usually outside in. And it is going to only take this spot if it needs to move them, move out a certain color worker before placing its own. Otherwise, it's going to go here to place one. And if it can't place, or it doesn't have anything, it will always go here. It's never going to clear it for you. You also have this neutral player. And anytime any player lands on the neutral player's spot, it's going to move 3 places clockwise, and it always tries to stand in the spot where there's the single steam cost. If that is already taken, it will stand in the double steam cost. It never goes into this free spot. It's not going to happen. Okay. Everything else is the same. Now let's talk for the automa. There are some priorities. Just look them up, but they're very simple. You pretty much, if you think about it, the only one you really need to know is, okay, what is the specific priority for it gaining inventions? And that's printed right here, depending on how many resources it has. Everything else is pretty self-explanatory. Now let's talk about how do I score in the game. So I've already talked to you about how you score the points during the game by moving your worm bus, by activating your machines, etc. At the very end of the game, you are also going to score for these tracks. You are going to use the spot where your pilgrim is, and you'll have been moving your pilgrim around because most of the time you move your pilgrim when you take there's a lot of ways, but a lot of them come from different things like this. So this action right here means I move my pilgrim on the red one space, move my pilgrim on the yellow one space. But there's other ways too. And every time you see a gray, you can move it, your pilgrim any space number you want. You're always going to move them away from the temple and down the track. So this is what I'm going to tell you. Keep this bad boy handy. The player aid tells you exactly the way to score these 4 tracks. And it's very important to be paying attention to that to your strategy. This track will score this amount of points, in this case 8, times the number of cubes that are on your factories that have moved all the way to the right. This track will score this number of points, in this case 3, times your reputation level. Okay, that's the thing that you're trying to upgrade with the hat track. This will score this many points for each of the mega inventions that you have from the mega factory. Each of those that you have, they're called university inventions. You take that times this, that's how many points you get here. And then this track, you'll score this many positive points, in this case 6, for each of the exploit spots where you have no tiles matching them. So that means I have no tiles. Notice I have all the tiles here, so I wouldn't get anything for that. But if I didn't have these two, that would be 2 times 6, that'd be 12 points. Then you're going to score, or you're going to lose points based on the red for that many points. In my case, I was on a 6. So 6 times the number of conflicts that I'm currently in. In this case, it was just 1, so that means I would lose 6 points. And then finally, for you and for the bot, you're going to take the total number of resources, not Steam. Steam's not a resource. Total number of resources plus the total number of workers you have. You'll score 2 points for each. 1 point for each of those, each 2 that you have. So at a 2-to-1 ratio, so if I had 10, I would score 5 points. Okay? Now, he will score identically to you on the tracks, but he will never lose points for the river. He'll get everything else in the exact same way you will. He'll also get whatever his endgame card says, and then this diabolical clown will also get the base value of every spot that his pilgrims are on anyway. So beating him is not easy because he scores for that last thing that you don't get to score for, but he does. He scores for everything else, plus he gets that bonus card, plus he never loses points, and he gets those tracks. So, not an easy game to beat the bot in by far, but one that is doable. Okay, so I think I've covered everything. I hope this was very helpful. Hopefully you know now how to play this game, play it in full, and understand it, and also know how to play this solo. And it's really, really good to use this player aid. Obviously, it's got all the icons on it that you need to understand. It tells you about the actions, etc. That's very helpful. So yeah, that's it. So I hope you enjoy this game. It's a very good game, but it's also very complex. Thanks so very much for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. Whatever you do in the future, I really, really hope you have a fantastic time doing it. One thing I forgot to say, since the bot never has a gear, it can it can, build anytime. It doesn't have that restriction that you do. So if it was to run its factory, then you ran its factory right away, it would run it again. The other thing that's important to note is that if you are following the factory running space, you would, even if you were in this spot and the bot was to run its factory, you could also follow, because it doesn't matter where the gear goes for you. So basically, this whole gear is there so you can't just keep running your factory and extending the game and just generating points, because that would be broken. The bot will never do that, because as long as he can take any action, he'll take any action before he would actually run his factory. All right, I think that does it. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Take it easy. One very important thing that I forgot to mention is, when does the game end? The game ends as soon as you reveal any tile that shows this little spot right here. And it's basically the second to last tile on every single one of the tracks. But the way you set up the two-player game or the solo game, the river one will already be, it won't be this far out. You'll have not put any of these tiles in. So you're never going to end with the river. It's either going to end with the forest or the yellow track or the red track. So there we go. Sorry about that. That's how the game ends. Kind of a big thing. Take it easy, everybody.